Hey Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. Yesterday I decided that I didn't really want my gaming PC anymore, but hear me out, right? Here's why. It was just taking up way too much space in my office. It was in the Corsair 4000D. Yesterday I decided that I wanted to downsize the PC. However, things didn't go exactly to plan, because they went better than expected. The PC turned out way cooler than I ever thought it was going to, so we actually need to take a trip back in time to see how this thing came together. So let's time travel a bit. About this time last year, I built this right here. This is my dream gaming PC build, and I've been using it since then as my gaming PC, obviously, because that was the point of the build. The cooling performance in it is decent enough. It's got a 240mm rad and a 360mm rad at the front. A little while ago, I'll put a link in the description to this and the build I'm about to talk about. I did a build in the Corsair 4000D and I made the same amount of radiator capacity fit in that case that's in the 5000D. So here's my thinking. Today, I'm gonna build myself another dream PC. I'm gonna call this Dream PC V2. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna downsize this. I'm gonna use some of the same hardware. So I'm gonna use the same GPU. And I think I'm gonna change the CPU out for a 5900X and a different motherboard. As mentioned, there's a link to this build in the description down below, but I'll give you a quick refresher. 3950X, 3090, and on the X570 Aqua ASRock board. There was a lot of debate when I built this about how the Mystic Fog would hold up over time. Now this build's been together for about a year, and I'm happy to say that with Mystic Fog, there is no growth, there's nothing weird, nothing's fouled up as far as I can see, and the system is still running really well, and the thermals are pretty good for this. Even though it didn't go exactly as I planned, I did want to use a little bit of a thicker radiator, but at the time I didn't have anything that would fit. Now I've got a bunch of different water cooling gear that we're going to go with. So the GPU, I'm going to keep this GPU in the, well, it's going to go in the new system. The RAM I'm going to put in the new system. Both of the drives are going to go in the new system because it's going to be another AMD system, so it'll be fine. Also, the radiators in this are both slim rads, and I'm going to try and go for a thicker rad at the front because I've already done it in the 4000D, and it's going to be a slim rad at the top. So the cooling capacity is going to be the same. I'm going to try and use the same fans again as well because I like them. It's only a single cable that comes off each fan frame, and it's just easier to cable manage. And I'm going to use a different coolant. I'm going to use an opaque coolant. Yes, I know. People are like, oh, it's gonna clog up your system. No, it'll be fine. It's okay. As sad as I am to see this go, it just has to be done. So let's get messy. Started pulling this thing apart, and then I just didn't stop, and I just kept going. So now, even if I wanted to not pull this whole system apart, so now we need to build something brand new. So let's figure that out. All right, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the build in the Corsair 4000D of my new dream PC V2 gaming PC build. Yeah, let's call it that. I decided that I didn't want to benchmark this system, basically because I just want to use it, and I've been putting this thing together for about 2 and a bit days now, and I'm just over it. I just want to play a game, so I might come back to this in another video if you guys are interested. But let's quickly chat about the parts. The CPU is the AMD Ryzen 9 5900X. We put the 5900X on the Asus ROG Crosshair Dark Hero. Yes, I finally said it right the first time. The RAM is 32 gigs of Trident Z Neo at 3600 megatransfers. The water block on the CPU is actually the one we use in the Matrix PC build, and I'll put a link to that down in the description, but it's the new Corsair XC7 Pro. Is that what it is? Yeah, it's that one, the new one, the new one that supports LGA 1700 as well. And I've had good experiences with this water block, so I decided to use it. You probably would have noticed as well that there was no thermal paste on it, obviously because I've used this water block in a build before. So yeah, I had to use new thermal paste. The GPU is the Asus ROG Strix RTX 3090 OC. It's an absolute monster of a GPU, and I've been using this GPU as my gaming PC's GPU since the 3090 came out. So yeah, it's a beast. It does all of the things, and does all of the things very, very well. All of the fittings and basically all of the water cooling gear in the system is EK stuff. So the rads are EK, pump res is EK, most of the fittings are EK. It's those new fittings with, well, the newish fittings with the sleeves and those collars on them that you can add the rings in for a little bit of color accent. I tried to line a bunch of them up so you could see them, but sometimes you just can't because you can't tighten it any more than it already is. So, you know, I had to do what I had to do. All of the tubing is 16mm PETG. All of the runs that you're seeing in this system are all fresh runs. So I went and bent everything brand new. I had heaps of straight off cuts from other builds and whatnot that I basically just bent. I didn't actually need to pull out any new tubing that I've got stored, so that was nice. The coolant is EK Cryo Fuel. It's the electric purple stuff. We've actually used this in one build before, and I'll put a link to that in the description if you want to check that out as well. The cables are custom-made cable mod cable extensions. These are the exact same ones that I had in the previous build. So if they look familiar to you, that's because you've actually seen them before. If not, welcome to the channel. Hope you enjoyed the build. The fans are Lian Li SL120 uni fans. I mean, the reason why I use these are they're very easy to plug in. There's no cables really. There's 6 cables for all of the fans. 3 are RGB and 3 are PWM. I've got everything hooked into the Corsair Commander Pro, and I talked about this before, but I made up custom adapters so I can adapt regular RGB for Corsair iQ. So then I basically just use one program to control this whole PC. I don't have any fans or any PWM stuff plugged into the motherboard whatsoever. The Commander Pro does everything, lighting, the pump control, everything, just because I want to use one program to do all of the things. That being said, I'm using 2 programs to do all of the things. Obviously, I'm using AuraSync to configure the lighting on the motherboard and the RAM because Corsair iQ likes to play funny buggers when it comes to configuring those things, and it will just take over. So I made sure it didn't take over any of that stuff, and I use iQ for doing that split lighting effect. And the keen eye out there would notice that the lighting effects are exactly the same as the old PC. That's because I didn't reconfigure any lighting whatsoever except for the motherboard lighting. The rest of it is quite literally what I had on the old setup. I didn't really want to change it, and I don't feel like changing it right now, so I did it. And obviously the case is the Corsair 4000D. I have done a custom loop build in this before, but not quite like this. Now, I had a couple ideas with the tube runs with this initially, and I was basically going to copy the liquid gold build until I realized that that would just be boring. I'd be rehashing the same build. So I decided to go a little bit different, and what I wanted to do was have all of the fittings, like everything running into all of the fittings, run vertically. So I did like double 90s basically for every single run in the system. Even the ones that you can't see are double 90s back here. This one from the pump res into the CPU is only a 90, but I just wanted to make it look completely different. And I'm so happy that I did that because This build turned out way nicer than I ever thought it was gonna turn out. It looks so much better in person than it does in any video that I could ever make. It just turned out brilliantly and I'm just so happy with the results. There's a couple things I also wanted to mention with this build as well. So the GPU water block, I think I might have mentioned this in the original build, but this version is an R&D sample of the Strix water block from EK. So it is the same, but it's not as the off-the-shelf version, if that makes sense. When I pulled the water block out, there wasn't any buildup from the old coolant, which was the EK Mystic Fog. There was a little bit of corrosion around the sides here. I've had liquid cooled PCs for years and years and years, and I can tell if it needs to be pulled out and cleaned and if it actually needs any type of maintenance. And all I did was I flushed out the GPU quite a few times. It may look a little bit dirty around the edges where the O-ring is, but it actually doesn't affect the performance at all. The jet plate was very clean still. The micro fins were very clean. Now, to mount the pump res combo at the front on the rad, I actually made up a custom bracket, and it's the same bracket that I used when we did the original 4000D build. However, this time I actually made the bracket a bit nicer and a bit cleaner because it's a permanent system, so it doesn't look as ghetto. It is still kind of ghetto, but it does the trick. But as I mentioned, I'm really happy with this build. Now, I'll do my best to put most of the stuff in a PC part picker list down below because there is so much hardware. It's kind of impossible to put all of it because there's so many different fittings and I just don't want to go through all of that. I mean, you can use this as inspiration to build a beautiful PC of your own so you can see how I did the tube runs and whatnot. But other than that, yeah, it's beautiful and I love it and I can't wait to actually get to using it. Yeah. Anyways, guys, if you like the music you heard here, I make all the music. It's available by clicking that join button down below. Make sure you get yourself subscribed to see awesome videos like this one. I really love building this thing. This thing turned out so cool. And look at the graph. This graph right here, it shows the real homies. And there's only like 25% real homies. The rest, yes, they've got some work to do. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peek. And well, you see, can you guys hear that? Can you hear that? Sounds like music, right?